Hey guys, today is all about live wells. Everything there is to know about them and how to install them in your boat from different ways from low to high budget. Really quickly, I want to show you a new product of ours. This is our live well. A lot of people have been asking for a cheaper, bigger, like plastic live well, and this is it right here. This is quite big. It's quite large. It has an overhanging catch lip, so it'll catch water from splashing and it'll re-splash back in here. It's got 1/4-20 inserts, so you just install this underneath the deck, make sure you have your holes drilled, and you get 1/4-20 hardware, like stainless hardware just like that. And it goes in just like that. And you would honestly just bolt this underneath your deck. You can also frame around this. This is a perfect 90-degree angle on all sides. If you look inside here, it's got divider slots. See? You can see them grooved in right here. And the better thing about this is look at the bottom. Notice how one side of the bottom goes deeper than the other. See how this angles up and these angle in? That means all water collects right at the bottom at the very back. And this is where you would drill the port for your through hole fitting, and all the water would drain to it and go out. And this is a very, very generous live well. This is bigger than our standard aluminum ones that are 18 gallons. This looks like it holds maybe a lot more water. So it's definitely another option. It's cheaper, it's larger, and it has really nice options about it. So if you're right in the middle of boat build and you're thinking about framing a live well, this is a very nice, generous one. This will hold 5 pigs all day. Okay, so there are all different ways to rig a live well. We're gonna show you the simplest way. If you just needed one now, you're on a budget, you're just trying to slap this together so you can fish next week, this is how I would do it. I'd go find the cleanest HDPE tough tote you can find at a Lowe's or a Home Depot or equivalent hardware store. Now, what I mean about HDPE, I mean this thicker plastic kind of material, high density polyethylene. It'll last you a lot longer. If you get a clear plastic tote and try to make that a live well, it will break and shatter within a few hours of use maybe. Like it might last you a day or so before you start getting problems. They're just not meant to hold up to it. These are at least able to take the flex. You can actually stand on this and use it as a step stool. In most parts, it'll support an actual human body. So it does a whole lot better if you're gonna use it to, to hold a lot of gallons of water and fish. Now, it's just choosing the right one that's actually gonna work for your application, meaning one that's a little bit longer than it is wide and short too. A lot of times you might have to trim these to make them fit underneath your frame. A lot of people have to trim and refit them. But they do get it done, and this will hold water, and you can install drain fittings, infill fittings, and overflow fittings in this, as we're gonna show you right now. We have right here, this little bit of parts. That is actually all you need to make a functioning live well. That and hose too. You need hose. You need a fill nozzle, an overflow nozzle, and you need a drain fitting. And then you need all the parts that are actually meant to like drain and fill water or drain and intake water from your boat. So that's what these fittings are. We actually give you one extra one just for application. You're either gonna use 2 straight fittings or you're gonna use a straight and an elbow for the 3/4 inch fittings. We give you an 800 GPH C-flow pump. This is what is actually gonna be taking water in for the back of the transom. And then we also give you a plug. So generally most people are gonna use this elbow fitting for the drain. And we're gonna give you a plug like this. So this will fit right inside a 3/4 inch fitting, like so. And you can just twist it and tighten it. And then the bottom of your live well, your drain fitting is plugged until you're ready to release it and drain out of the water. The hosing we've chosen is the same type of hosing that are in the higher end flow-rite kits. It is this black tubing that is able to be molded and formed in any way you get it. You just need to simply heat it up with a heat gun for a period of time until this white PVC lining heats up and the whole tube is pliable and flexible. Then you can bend it and hold it there until it cools, and it will stay that way. It will now be reformed that way. So there's not a whole lot of pressure on the fittings all the time. The hose doesn't want to naturally kink and fold when it's formed that way to begin with. So this hose is absolutely the best marine plumbing hose that they make. So we include 1 1/8 and 3/4 inch hose, both to fit these and to fit these. And then we also include these. These are the clamps. So they're a lot better to use than your traditional pipe clamps. Now you can go get those if you really want them, but these are so much easier. They're one and done crimp. You get a tool like this, put it right there once you have your spot, and then you crimp down. You hold down, it tightens right on and it holds tight to the fitting. We include about the right amount you would need, 2 per each section of hose. Use 2 for the inlet, hose, fittings, 2 for the drain, 2 for the overflow. So you got this tub. What I would recommend that you install these fittings with is this bit. I don't know what this bit is called, but it's obvious what it does. As it drills through, it widens the hole, and you can get an exact fit with this fitting. You also want to make sure wherever you drill it that if you're going to put a lid on top of it, that your fitting will clear the lid. So we're going to go ahead and drill about 1 inch, like over here. We're going to go ahead and make the fitting right there. Yeah, let's go ahead. Just watch it bust through. Yeah, that was like on the money. Look how tight. So that was right on the money for, and then the outside doesn't really matter, but the inside you do need to seal that with a 3M 5200 or a silicone of choice. Silicone will be obviously a little bit easier to find and more abundant and probably cheaper. And it'll work for these, it'll work in this case. There, now we have our inlet fitting installed. That is our inlet nozzle. Now we want to install the overflow nozzle. Now how you want this to work, ladies and gentlemen, is as this fills in water, you're going to want new water pushed and it's overflowing over here. So water is entering here and exiting here. What you do want to avoid is putting the overflow fitting over here or next to it, because somehow in your configuration of your boat, it doesn't really allow you to do it over here. And what that will happen is you'll have a lot of stagnant water just puddling in 3/4 of the live well, and you'll see all your fish gathered around the nozzle and staying right here, gasping for air because there's not a proper circulation of air going through it. You'll see them struggling to breathe, and you'll see that a lot. You can eliminate most of that by making sure the water flows evenly through the live well. So we're going to install this over here. Now, if I'd have kept just chewing on it, it would have widened it out a little bit more, but I kind of just, it being so tight like this is fine. You also want to make note that you don't want it to bind on any of the corners like it's binding here. If you might have to trim off a piece to make this work, just off the side to make that work, depending on where you put it, or you can make sure it's on a flat piece. But in this case, I would trim off the last little bit of corner once I chose my angle. Now here's the real important thing about this when you choose your overflow fitting. So you can have your angle pointing out toward the side, and that way it jettisons out the side of the hole above the water line. You do want it to be slightly down like this. That way your hose is face down like this, so the water is sloping downwards. This always has to be hanging lower than the overflow fitting. That is of note that I did not do and would have regretted that you need to remember is you want your overflow fitting lower than your nozzle. Right now they're about the same height. What that's going to do is it's going to make the nozzle lose its ability to kind of spray in here. The water will overtake the spray, and they'll keep throwing new fresh water in, but the whole spray is kind of what aerates all the bubbles and gets the water oxygenated. So that will kind of dissipate if it's allowed. So this actually could have been higher than this. You want this a little bit lower, in so much that the top of this is underneath the bottom of this. And then you'll get pretty good penetration that way. So as I was talking about the hose being slanted like this, going out the side, a lot of people don't like to do that. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll run the elbow fitting vertically down. So, and then the hose will curve out, because this is generally somewhere close to the transom in general, and this will go out the bottom of the transom, somewhere out the bottom. Generally at the lowest point that you can make it go. People will generally put it right there, and the hose just kind of connects like so. Take our clamp fitting, you want to slide that up that groove, high as you can get it. That's tight right there. That will cut with a utility knife, but for all intended reasons, I wanted to cut it right there. Now you want a pretty hot heat gun, like a corded heat gun will do a whole lot better here. We're not going to use it for a few reasons, but you'd want to heat the whole tube as you can. Get it nice and hot and pliable. That will go like that. And you would also go ahead and clamp that the same way you would clamp this. Now we're going to go ahead and install the hose on this fitting. And you do not want to heat the hose to form it to fit this. You kind of want to pressure fit it on there. If you warm it up and then try to clamp it, it's bad. Like, it won't seal. You'll have leaks. All right. I like to blow it through the hose because it heats the whole hose up rather quickly from the inside. And you can kind of blast it from the outside. In the boat, I will clamp this into place if I can and form fit it like so. Now this pump. This is what goes through the transom. So the transom's about 1.5 to 2 inches thick. So you would obviously, this part goes in the inside. You would clamp from the outside. You would cut off the excess. An additional screen you can that fits on the back, which is heavily recommended for longevity of the pump. You would just leave a little bit for the screen to go on, and then you would cut off the excess. So you'd end up probably cutting about 1.5 to 2 inches off the back for that once it's secured to the load. It does include an 1.125" fitting for 1.125" hosing, but we don't have an 1.125" nozzle. So if you wanted serious, like faster, I guess more fluid flow, you can find an 1.125" nozzle off on the aftermarket and use this fitting if you wanted to. But because it's 3/4 inch fitting, we have 3/4 inch fitting right here. We'd end up installing it somehow like this. That's how it would go. Now for the drain fitting. You want this on the lowest part, farthest back that you can. Like you want it, so if you can tilt your boat backwards or if it's on the ramp and you're draining, all the water goes to the very back middle. There we go. Barely fits right in there. Now you might have to trim off a little bit of lip to compensate for the molding. That is a thing you'll have to do with these totes. Now sealing doesn't matter much down here. It matters on the top where the water pressure is coming through, so make sure to seal the top of the fitting, and down here you just need to clamp this tight. Make sure that it never moves, or you'll have a constant flooding boat and you'll wonder why. All right, so there's a live well here. We just have it conveniently ran through this hole here, and this is what it's going to kind of look like. You need to have about a 3-inch clearance from the bottom of your hull to your frame where the live well is sitting on for this to work. And then obviously it runs down underneath the subfloor if this is simulating a subfloor out to the transom. All right, so there we got it. Obviously the drain hose is running underneath this. This is simulating a subfloor. You have a 3-inch clearance from the bottom of your hull to the subfloor, wherever it is. If it's on a V-hull, it'll be a lot easier. If it's on a flat bottom, you have to, it's a little harder because it's completely flat. You don't have that V taper. For those of you where the bottom drain plug coming out here, you just don't have enough clearance for it. You got a shallow boat, it's not very tall, or you got framing clearance issues, whatever. A lot of people can't do this, so they end up running it out the side. So that is an option. We include the extra straight fitting just in case this issue happens to you. What I did here is I cut a lot of that top flange off, almost right at the thread, so it can sit as low down here as possible. All right, here we go. That's how we have it. Now there will just be this little bit of water stacked in here because this is not, but there is also going to be that little bit of water stacked here because this is going to be elevated. So either way, you still got to leave your lid open so the remaining water can drain out, or you got to get it out with a rag or something, or a sponge. Some people do that to make sure the live wells always stay clean and they don't algae up. But this way is just as good as anything. If you look, you can make slight modifications to the bottom of the nut. Kind of like trim it right there. That way it'll be completely flat. You can almost have this live well sitting right flat on the deck. I would recommend some sort of buffering support between it and the hull, but you can absolutely run it out the side. A lot of people do that, and if I were going to do that, this is how I would do it. This will then go to its own through-hole fitting. You would go ahead and cut that, put that here, and this would go on the back of the transom like so. Down there at the bottom of the hull, right just as far down as you can get it. This one also at the bottom of the hull where the transom is, as far down as you can get it, because you don't want it popping up as you fluctuate weight on the boat and then it's above the water line trying to suck in water. And this thing, you can have it down there too, underneath the water line and it will drain. Look, the better way is for it to drain like this out the side of the hole. It'll be a much more effective draining process, but it is harder to accommodate because then you'll have to make it go through the side, and you generally have stuff on the side of the live well in the boat that you're trying to do. But it is worth it if you want a much more efficient draining live well like that to run out the side. But you can, of course, run it like most people do, and that's out the bottom like this. Both ways will overflow. You also want to make sure you plug this thing up. All right, now you've seen the bare bones of what it takes to complete a live well. The minimum amount of fittings. It's a pretty simple process, right? But some of you guys want more. Where this kind of suffers, the boat needs to be in the hole all the time to inlet water. So when you're on plane, it doesn't recirculate the water because the boat is out of the hole on plane, and therefore you can't keep getting water. In that case, a lot of people just want a recirc option. Just not only, sometimes they don't want constant water pumping in, sometimes they want to keep water a certain temperature. So they just want to have enough water in here, and then they want to control the temperature however they do it, and then they just want that water to recirc. And eventually they'll inflow new water as it goes, but they don't need to do it all the time. So in that case, you need to actually add a second pump and a second nozzle. Our bigger kit comes with a second pump and a second fitting, and also a flow-rite live well timer, which is the best timer you can actually get. Now this secondary pump, because we include two pumps, this pump actually gets installed into the live well itself at a place where this is accessible. You need to be able to access the head for maintenance or troubleshooting if you have to take it out to replace it. So I would say right there or right there, which I kind of like this more because the water will inlet, the water will suck more from over here, which just like the overflow, we kind of want the water to kind of pool and not stagnate in one spot like over here. So it actually has to be right about there. And you would trim this the same way for the back of your transom for the inlet pump. This is the recirc pump. This is why we're doing it this way. Are you sticking it in here? Now this one, just like with the bottom one, you would want to put a bead of silicone, fairly copious layer of it, on the back of this or around this. That way you would smush it tight and it would be sealed. Now this nozzle, see how we had the hose kind of cut? We're going to go ahead and cut it like right there. I forgot to mention is that we give you two screens. One needs to go here for the aerator pump. Otherwise, all the crawfish shells and poop and rocks or whatever they eat that they excrete in the live well will definitely go right into the pump and ruin it. So you need a screen, and also for the same exact reason you need a subsequent screen on the other side from the inlet pump coming out through the transom. We will be including two mesh screens like this just for those things. All right, so we're submerging the aerator pump, or inlet pump, whatever you want to call it, into a mock tank, which is simulating the lake. Right now it is submerged, so we're going to go ahead and start. We have it rigged like so. We'll be covering the rigging here in a second. All right, we're starting this. You have to open these up. So if they don't fill, you turn the pump on and nothing's filling. And you can control how intense the spray is by tightening it. Yeah, so. We're gonna go ahead and let that fill. All right, now this is filled for a good long while now. Now it's about to reach finally the overflow. Remember, the overflow is extremely important in this whole system. Especially if you're only running one nozzle, the overflow is everything. The overflow is how all the old water kind of gets pushed back. Remember, we're pushing water and it's going this way, constantly getting new water on one side and pushing out the old water to the other side. So it's constantly getting a new fill of water to the best of its ability. We are starting to get a healthy overflow right here. And that's how it would trickle out of the transom or out the side of the boat, whichever you prefer. Are you in the fitting not low enough that it'll overtake the pumps? Kind of what happens here. As you can see, it's staying right there. And it's Literally takes the whole 1.1 fitting to keep up with the 800 GPH pump. Just keeping it up, but remember right now, only for simulation reasons, we kind of just did this very quickly, but this needs to be lower than your pump if you want the spraying, the aeration to continue. Otherwise, all it's doing is just pumping in new water. So it's pretty useless to recirc. It's not completely useless, but kind of. If the whole point is recirc is to keep the same water and aerate it the whole time, you're going to need to run that about, make sure that hole is about a few inches below. I would say 2-3 inches below your inlet and recirc fittings. Okay, so that's gonna continue to overflow. But now we can show you how the drain works. We have the drain hose right here. See how nothing's coming out of it, but it is connected to the through hole fitting down there. We can now pull the drain plug. And now a whole lot of water is going to come out very quickly. That, ladies and gentlemen, is everything there is about a live well. How to rig it, the best way, multiple ways, however you want to do it. These are the best practices. These are the minimum things you would need. And I hope this helped you out. These are our official TBN live well kits, as well as this molded live well. Check them out. They're all exclusive. I'll leave the links in the description below if you want to see them. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll check you out there. Tight lines.